Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today is January the 19th, 2022.
WM Ambassador.
And we welcome everybody today to our first webinar series of 9 that's on climate technology solutions. This is climate technology solution for circular fashion. And it's coming from the Dsphere team. Dsphere is a team of individuals scattered all over the world, and we are a creative fashion platform based and headquartered here in California, in Sausalito. And so for the next 9 webinars, we hope to share and inform people about how Dsphere will be able to transform the industry from a creative standpoint as well through personalization. Today, this particular webinar is being recorded, and we welcome everybody across the globe and giving your time, energy, and being here. So we're going to touch on a few things that are relevant in the current industry in fashion, especially as it relates to waste, creativity, and the nuances of personalization. But with respect to Dsphere as a platform, it is also a climate technology solution. And so we're looking at it as how to leverage the technology to help both brands and customers be the solution to climate change. And in doing so, to reduce carbon and energy, water, from recreating fashion. Dsphere stands for digital fashion in the digital economy, and sphere is symbolism of equality and equity in the digital world and in the shared economy that we live, that we promote diversity and inclusion. The website is currently live, and so if you would like to go and visit dsphere.network, you will see Dsphere as a tool to not only tell stories, design your fashion using repurposing of clothing, as well as ready-made fashion designs that you can actually purchase today. So my name is Shamini Dana, and I'm the founder and CEO of Dana Inc. and Dsphere. Dana Inc. is actually the parent company. We are a fashion technology company that provides services to the fashion world, including technology innovation. We're also a brand that has been around from 2008. And today we are collaborating with a number of our partners in looking at recreating fashion. So what is Dsphere? Dsphere is actually a proprietary technology platform, and we are unlocking creativity through personalization of fashion. We do this because there is a problem that we see in the world today. Many of us are probably very well aware that today's fashion industry, the way it's made, it is wasteful and harmful to society and the planet. It takes about 700 gallons of water to make a piece of clothing. And here you have, the breakdown on water, energy, and carbon. But over and above that, we're very well aware, especially Generation Z and the next generation, Alpha, I'm sure to come, as that not only that in every second, let me rephrase that. Every second, a dump truck full of clothing ends up in the landfill. But more importantly, we have a part to play in this, right? And 70% of that $3 trillion industry actually ends up in the landfill. And so if left unchecked, this fashion industry, which is mostly a linear business model, will be emitting more than 10% of all of humanity's carbon emissions. In fact, it's supposed to be, if left unchecked, over 50% before this decade is through. Fashion also has a big contribution in the water pollution, industrial water pollution. Over 20% of it is there. And it goes on in terms of its also social impact, which we'll be addressing in the next few webinars. But because of this, what has happened is there have been new business models in the circular fashion world that has arisen. Many of you know about the resale model. And so we're moving from a linear business model that has taken, extracted from the earth, made something out of it, which is fashion, and then disposed of it, and moving it into a circular business model. And that circular business model is all about extending the life of a particular garment as long as possible, and to design it out of waste and pollution. And so Dsphere embraces all of the circular endeavors that we have committed to as part of our 2020 commitment, which is to design out of waste. Number two, we take back using second life materials. We implement and we remake clothing, and that's why we call it recreate. It's called repurposing into new clothing, and then we end up recycling. So on the left-hand side here, you see that the circular fashion world is one that is going forward to ensure that we are addressing the environmental impact. And Dsphere, where we fit in, is really one of the 5 current circular fashion business models. So if you look at today's circular fashion business models, many of you do know of rental, repair, resale, and recycle. And so the one model that has not been digitized or using leveraging technology, however, it is in play today, which is upcycling of clothing into new clothing. Many, many, many brands are doing that now, is repurposing of the clothing. Where we come in is we've taken artificial intelligence, machine learning, and 3D, and using digitization, been able to place together a creative platform. So by saying that we are unlocking creativity through repurposing fashion, we're actually the Canva of fashion design, right? And so when you repurpose clothing, the way we're doing it, we're empowering our customers, our brands who are working with us with this new technology to look at a finished piece of garment or a finished material as the end source itself to be made into new fashion. And so the way we do this is the following, right? This particular technology allows creative expression. And so when we look at one of our products today, which is the circular fashion tee, the way this particular product is made using our platform is that we're empowering customers to upload their own t-shirts in their wardrobe, t-shirts that they may have kept through time and history, or they've been gifted, or they've borrowed it, or people have passed it on because it's a dear one, right? And so you use these images, you take photographs of them and you upload it into our platform. You can also, if you don't want to use your own, choose materials from our library. And these materials have already been sourced, like Second Life materials and finished goods. One of our partners is Queen of Raw, and she and I are both in sync with the understanding that the materials that are circulating in this world today isn't abundant enough to make new clothing in itself, right? And so we're harnessing this new creative fashion using existing materials or second life materials. So coming back to how we work on this, once you get to the platform and you are able to design, drag and drop, which is how a Canva would very similar be, you end up with this template. This one has 5 designs, 5 templates, and then you either send your t-shirts to our factory here in Columbus, Ohio, or if you have chosen materials, which are all Second Life, it is also sent to the factory. From there, you know, these are again collected, sorted, and made sure that it's verified with the images that the customer is looking at. And then what it does is we use the ability now to cut, sew, stitch, and bring this fashion garment to life. The product is completed for this circular fashion tee. It's about 2 to 3 weeks and is delivered to the customer here in the United States. Now, a lot of people have asked us about this terminology, zero waste designs. Why use zero waste? Well, first of all, nothing goes to the landfill. Every single garment, for instance, this one takes 5 t-shirts, whatever scraps we have, we keep it. We use it for the following reasons. One, to make more accessories out of it, which we have. We use it for educational purposes because we talk to schools. We also use it for our intending pop-up stores, for art projects. And then we have a program with Worn Again Technologies that has not arrived yet here in the United States, but we are looking at partnering to recycle these scraps as well. And so when the product ends up in the hands of the customer, that customer now has the ability not only to tell the stories, right, using our platform, which is Dsphere Stories, but also at any point in time they need to be repaired, they can. We intend to also encourage them to take their designs in this form, which is digital, and share it using NFTs in the future. This is the future as well. So there's a lot of play in the metaverse in Dsphere, and we'll be touching on that in the next few episodes or webinars. A full demo of this Dsphere will be done in the next webinar, so I hope you join us. And so you can imagine that with these templates, one design can have million possibilities. One template that a fashion designer were to do, right? A customer now can drag and drop all these different pieces from Second Life into a t-shirt. A new t-shirt, which is one of a kind, which is personalized for you. And that's why we believe that the creativity can be harnessed. This is an image from the Dsphere platform. Again, I'm not going to go through the actual demo today. That will be in 2 weeks' time. But this is an image of, say, the circular memory jacket, our signature, which is actually 37 panels, right? And with the 37 panels, the customer can actually take material, which is on top here, and then drag and drop it into the panels. This then becomes 100% customized using Second Life materials, and it will be something that is very much akin only to that person. It is also a collaborative tool coming on board, so for gifting, it will be quite an extraordinary experience. So how is Dsphere a climate technology solution? As you know, we just talked about using Second Life clothing as a huge impact on the environment. Our designs currently are the CFT, the circular fashion tee, and the circular memory jacket. Both of these designs have gone through what we call a life cycle assessment. And so with a life cycle assessment, and David is going to be joining us on this, you as a brand or customer will be given your impact of saving on not only carbon emissions, but also on energy and water, right? And if I can read to you, just to take an example of the CFT, right? This is the circular fashion T. This is the report we got from the life cycle assessment. The Dana circular fashion T-shirt generates 95% lower greenhouse gas emissions than a generic T-shirt. Dana's circular fashion tee uses 95% less primary energy than a genetic T-shirt. And finally, Dana's circular fashion tee has a 0 water footprint compared to more than 3,500 liters of water for a generic T-shirt. So are we a climate technology solution? We think so, right? And to translate that so that consumers understand what does it mean to, when it comes to 3,500 liters of water. We've done the conversion into glasses of water, miles of driving, and hours of light on in terms of how much you are going to save. And so as a customer and a brand collaborating on our platform, this is all going to be tallied just like a ticker. And so each and every item will be given an environmental footprint and how much is being saved every time you repurpose clothing. So finally, I just want to give you an understanding again on a very high level. So why do we exist? Dsphere exists because we truly believe humans seek creative expression, right? And how we do this, and we're fueling creative expression, is that we're unlocking creativity through personalization of fashion. And what are Dsphere's products? Today, we use a creative fashion platform, right? Dsphere. And that's empowering people to design new fashion with existing fabric and fashion. And when we look at our core principles and our pillars, this platform is built, including making garments, so that we can empower people and brands to be climate change solution providers, right? We're connecting them to garment workers so that we give transparency and pay it forward. We're providing customer their digital tools to design and play in the metaverse. This will be discussed again in the next few webinars, how we do that. And we're creating a new medium of storytelling through fashion. Finally, we're democratizing fashion so that you are able to design, create your personalized fashion. And we truly believe this is the next step to circular fashion business model. So on that note, I'd like to invite our guest speaker, David Jabber. David is the founder of Climate Positive Consulting, a firm that helps companies advance climate strategy, analyze carbon footprints, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Over the last 20 years, David has worked with over 150 companies to advance environmental excellence. And David is the author of the new book, Climate Positive Business, how you can, in your company, hit bold climate goals and go net zero. It's a really good book and one that I strongly recommend. So on that note, welcome, David.
Great to be here, and thank you for the invitation to be part of your webinar launch.
Thank you. We are sitting today in an economy that is flooded with information, noise, right? Activists that keep on saying more needs to be done in the fashion world. And so I'd like to get from your understanding, now that you've worked across industries, right? Why is it important today to measure the environmental impact of your clothing as it relates to carbon, water, and energy?
Sure. And I think we could talk about that in the context of someone representing a business or even an individual. But essentially, if you're a business purchasing clothing or any type of textile, increasingly customers want to know about your environmental impacts just so they can make informed decisions about the effects they're having on the world. And that's been the case for a while, but now we also have the investor community very similarly looking at impacts of their investments and wanting to know that the businesses in which they're putting money, they want to have some assurance that there's not going to be some sort of environmental liability in terms of whether it's excess carbon emissions, toxics, or any number of things. Employees also want to know about environmental impacts, and you can actually see that in retention rates, for example, at companies that are doing the right thing. I think you save a lot of money as a company if you don't have to rehire employees. And I think what we see as one of the stronger trends in employees staying at a company is actually their sense of mission and social responsibility and purpose for their employer. And I would also argue you as a company want to know that for all those reasons. If you're actively managing your risk, you have to make some level of measurement your environmental impacts. And I think the only real question is, how much resources do you have to invest in it? Because it's something you need to do. And then on the individual level, if you're not representing a business, but even as an individual, you're one of those customers that are interested in making informed decisions often. And I think sometimes people point out to the fact that reducing individual consumption doesn't necessarily change the system and kind of create new companies. So the argument there is that if you refuse to buy fast fashion, for example, that doesn't necessarily change how clothing gets made. However, if everyone in the industrialized world switched a portion of their clothing purchases to something that has the footprint that you just showed, Shamini, they're dropping their emissions by 90%, and clearly a significant portion of that would have huge implications on existing emissions, even if that weren't making reductions in their own footprint, but you're actually creating a new system in the way that you're doing things.
Great. No, I'm very happy that you shared that. A lot of people that I talk to, especially in the last decade, have said, why isn't there any nutritional labeling for fashion, right? So I think more and more there's a big call out there in order to do so. And in order to even adhere to the possibility of nutritional labeling, and we see it coming. There has been talk about the breakdown, not only just from the environmental standpoint, how it was made, by who, where, what.
You might need to unpack that. You might need to unpack that a little bit. Nutrition labeling, not necessarily calories, but talking about like environmental impacts in water.
Exactly. And so, then the other matter is, well, how do you verify, right? How do you verify that the information that a brand is sharing with you is for real? Where is the transparency? And so this comes, and we've often been asked that question. And one of the reasons we've provided life cycle assessments is because it's one way of verification. And so, David, you've done life cycle assessments across industries. Can you touch and inform people to what extent a life cycle assessment does, and how does that a fashion brand or consumer really get to interpret this? And is that the only measurement today?
You just showed some results from a life cycle analysis or life cycle assessment looking at energy, emissions, and water. So I would say the life cycle assessment is a tool to look at environmental impacts of a product. So not only carbon, water, but there are other things that that sometimes come with life cycle assessments in terms of assessment of toxics, radiation impact on air and water bodies other than carbon emissions. Life cycle assessment is a very comprehensive tool, but I wouldn't say it's the only one. And maybe just to break that down a little more, just get more into the definition. Life cycle assessment is the process by which you look at the value chain of a product and calculate the total impact of that product on what could be a range of metrics. So we, again, just looked at greenhouse gas emissions, energy, and water, but there are also some other impacts that I've seen depending on who's doing the analysis and what sort of data they have access to. So that's going through everything from sourcing, whether if you're working with natural fibers, that could be at a farm. If you're working with synthetic fibers, that could be kind of petroleum-based, the refining and processing of those materials, the transport to manufacturing, the energy it takes to process sort of the raw materials into clothing. It should look at packaging, and then it should also look at distribution downstream. And from there, you could even add in customer use. For example, the amount of washing that it takes over the lifetime of that product to look at a whole life cycle analysis. Life cycle assessment can be helpful to look at the trade-off between different options. So, for example, if you're looking at a cotton t-shirt versus a polyester t-shirt, and you're using the same methodology, because there are kind of assumptions and choices that go into how thoroughly you're looking at different portions of the value chain and what you include. But it can be valuable to do that. I would say accuracy depends on the extent to which you can get detailed information from your specific value chain. So if you're looking at your product, Shamini, you have some sort of inherent advantage in using reclaimed and reused materials based on other life cycle analyses I've seen in terms of incorporating recycled content, for example. But accuracy really depends on the extent you can get actual information versus sort of use proxy information, which sometimes you have to use because it can be hard to go into your supply chain. But that's sort of the essence of life cycle assessment and how you can use it at different measures. Life cycle assessment often doesn't look at everything you'd want to look at as an informed consumer. So, for example, child labor or slave labor in the supply chain that I know can be a concern for several different industries.
Yeah, no, good. Those are good points. It's often asked about accuracy and also, the correct information. So most brands, right, today, when they disclose on their websites, we have basically, saved X number of on water gallons and also on pollution. Should a customer actually take that at face value? And how do you believe that this is going to change in the future, David? It's a hot topic now because greenwashing is a big problem in the industry, right? And it is really cool to be green. And now with the resale market taking off, how can we perhaps inform or educate the customer to be the solution to verify information from brands? Any thoughts on that, David, do you think?
Well, I think it is a great question in terms of how accurate the information you see is. And one way to think about it, so if a brand tells you their t-shirt has a footprint of 20 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent, how do you know that's accurate? I mean, you might not completely like my answer because I think ultimately there's not necessarily a guarantee, but there are tools that you can use to, I think, have greater assurance. So you worked with a third party, as I understand it, for your life cycle analysis that had established credentials, and they were a third party, so they didn't necessarily have the conflict of interest that you might do it in-house. So using kind of third party assessors to do it is one. You can layer onto that the process of verification. So someone separate than doing the analysis actually looks at it and says that it's good. I had said earlier that assumptions can give different differences. And I think my point on ultimately you don't know, I think even people who are knowledgeable about life cycle assessments can have disagreement or make different assumptions and come up with fairly different numbers. And to me, part of this actually goes beyond number and more about the trust you have as a brand around your disclosure. So for example, for me, if Patagonia makes an environmental claim, I'm likely to hold that in sort of higher regard than other companies because they've shown for years that they have integrity on this issue and that they're trying to do the right thing. Does that mean they'll always get everything right? No. But I have the sense that even if there's a wrong, that they would, try to correct mistakes and keep working, moving forward to get better information. I think it's also helpful to think about this as a process, because a life cycle assessment isn't going to give you one number that's absolutely right at all times. It's mostly about, committing to transparency, going through some effort to come up with a footprint estimate, and then also being committed to like improving that to the extent you get better information and just really helping your customers make an honest and informed decision.
No, great points there. So let me come back now to Dsphere as a climate technology solution. We want to hear from everyone else as well. So where are we going now, right, with our technology and our platform? How can customers actually be the solution to climate change? Do you actually need to make a piece of clothing in order to effectively use our platform? And the answer is no. So here are some of the tools. There's also an invitation to visit dsphere.network. A lot of the times that you can make an impact is surely by your action, right? As a consumer, as a brand, as a person. And so one of the things that Dsphere does is storytell. And so if you were to reuse your pieces of garments and repurpose it or even resell it, our social media platform, which is Dsphere Stories, allows you to do that, to share your celebration that, instead of going out and buying a piece of clothing, I'm actually repurposing it. So once you get onto our platform, do go take a look at our Dsphere Stories. It's really a valuable tool now that we will be promoting across the globe in terms of what is your fashion story. Secondly, by uploading these images, right, of your own clothing and using designs already that is digitized, and sharing your story, or even being able to share it within your network, and also now being able to share it as an NFT digitally on, say, OpenSea. You are sparking your own creativity. You're actually injecting your own imagination. You're in the fashion industry. And so what we're saying is designing something itself will give you perhaps as much fulfillment and joy than really going out and purchasing something. Sustainable fashion, circular fashion, these words, right, don't necessarily mean a transaction needs to happen. If you are in the mode of sustainability and circularity, it's all about finding other avenues of fulfilling that need for expression, right? And so we hope that this creative expression can be done in multiple ways, of course, digitally in the metaverse, right? We will soon be having avatars and 3D experiences. We also promote your own creation, right, as a customer, and selling it back on Dsphere. So you yourself can become your own personal brand in the future. So what we're doing here is not only reducing environmentally the impact, but empowering you to humanize a piece of new fashion based on old clothing. And so finally, I'd like to say that this climate technology solution was built because we really believe that there is really enough clothing out there that can make new fashion and new fashion brands as well. And so why not shift the balance of power just a bit to give consumers that ability to do so? We are of a strong, firm believer that co-creation is the way to go, collaboration and conscious decisions. And so we are working on our part to give you this technology to leverage while you reduce the impact by repurposing clothing and then having fun with it too. Yeah. So with that, does anyone have any questions on this particular presentation or anything about Dsphere, as well as to our speaker? And David, if you had any questions, please let us know. If somebody's
Nothing for me. I think someone else should have the opportunity to talk.
sure. Anyone? No? Well, if you don't, we don't want to take up too much of your time. We will have a full demo in the next webinar. That's in 2 weeks' time. And from there, we will also have other demonstrations of this platform, including how it is closing the last mile of connecting the customer to the garment worker. That's also Dsphere. We'll be showcasing some of the fashion stories and how we believe that fashion is the next medium of storytelling, right? We'll also be looking at the ability to customize themes, ability to showcase an event using fashion. So do come on board and take a look at some of these digital webinars online. And finally, we like to play with the fact that the next revolution of probably technology is going to be happening in the fashion world. We believe that the digital generation has arrived, and where the career path is going to be for a lot of people will be this explosion going on in the metaverse. Anyways, so do come back, send us an email if you have any questions. Feel free to send me an email if you would prefer to do this directly. I'm sharing with you my direct email now. And again, visit dsphere.network. Once again, thank you very much for your time. David Jabber, always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you for your wise and insights, perspectives on sharing your perspective on the environment as it relates to fashion's impact. Love to have you again one more time. And then also to everyone out there for being here and also having your interest, time, energy, and hopefully we will see you online on dsphere.network. But more importantly, let this be an invitation for you to look at creating your next piece of garment to be able to share with the world. Thank you.
Pleasure to
Have a
be
great
here. Thank you,
day.
Shamini.
Thank you.